Hello, my name is Zach Dozier.
And I'm Emily Owen, and this is Robin Hood and Plato's views on justice. So today we're going to look at how Plato's views on justice correlate with the tale of Robin Hood and decide whether or not he is just.
So some history on Plato. Plato was born in 428 BCE in Athens, Greece. He also died in 348 BCE in Athens, Greece. He was a student of Socrates, and as he got older, he created his own academy. He taught Aristotle there, and at the academy, they didn't just learn about philosophy, there was also learning about math and the sciences. And as Plato's main views in life were about the forms, and the forms he mainly focused on were equality, beauty, and justice, the one we will be discussing today. And to get his ideas across, Plato used dialogues to make it easier to understand. And this was found in Britannica, the biography of Plato.
So the story of Robin Hood goes back as early as the 13th century. It tells about Robin Hood, who was an expert archer, and a group of men called the Merry Men, who stole money from the royalty and gave it back to the commoners. Prince John was the king at the time. He took over rule after his brother, King Richard, left for a crusade, and he was unfair to the people. He had high taxes and didn't look for the good of them. For the purpose of this presentation, we're going to use the Disney version, just because it's more well-known. And this information came from IMDb and History.com.
So first we're going to discuss why Robin Hood's actions were not just. So in Book 2 of the Republic, Plato is talking to a man named Glaucon, and he mentions an object called the Ring of Gyges. The myth is that the man finds the ring and he knows that it can make people invisible. Once invisible, he knows that he can do things he cannot normally do. And ultimately what the man decides to do is kill the king and marry the queen. The king was unjust, but was it just for him to murder him as well, just because he did it in the veil of the ring? So with the ring, it just tempts people to be unjust, but the people still seem just. And I believe this relates to Robin Hood, because if Robin Hood had the ring, he would still use it, and he would steal more from the prince and give more back to the poor, so he would continue to do his unjust act. Another reason I believe Robin Hood is unjust is the idea of the ideal state. And in Book 3 of the Republic, it is described as a luxurious city, and it is broken down into 3 levels. The first level is the rulers, and then the guardians, and then the merchants. The rulers are the best guardians, and then the guardians are the strongest people in the city, and then the merchants all have a specialized skill that they use to make money and goods for the city. And for the purpose of this presentation, we will be mainly focusing on the rulers and merchants. So in the ideal state, there are 4 virtues that are present. The first virtue is courage, but that is only relevant to the guardians, so it's not needed for what we're talking about. The next is wisdom. Wisdom is good for the rulers because they are the smartest people, and this is why they rule. The next virtue is self-control, and for the craftsman and the virtue of self-control, it is restraining from stealing and wanting more, so the idea of pleonexia comes into hand. And then for the rulers, it's using their power for not using their power for personal needs. And I understand that the prince might have been unjust, but we're not discussing if his actions were unjust, just if Robin Hood's were unjust. The last virtue is justice, and in this it's just, justice is just do your assigned job. And then it comes back to the idea of pleonexia, because that is an injustice, because that is grasping for more. So the bottom class that Robin Hood is a part of is grasping for more goods and stuff from the king. And then to continue with justice, justice is a balance between the state and then the 3 parts of the soul, the mind, the body, and the soul. And so I believe it would be an imbalance if Robin Hood did all these things, because theft would be an imbalance of the state because he's stealing from the king and grasping for more. And then in his body, it would be an unjust act, so I believe it would be an imbalance in his body as well. And this was found in Book 4.
So I'll be looking at how Robin Hood is just through Plato's views on justice. And first, Plato talks about how speaking truth is part of being just. And Robin does that by telling the commoners what it means to have money and that the prince is taking more than needed. He explained to them that he can take their money back and they can live a good life. And Plato also talks about the beneficial end goal, and Robin Hood is working towards that because he is taking the money from the prince and giving it back to the people so that they can live good lives and not struggle through their entire lives. He also explains how justice is not a set of rules, but more of character traits, and I believe that Robin Hood has those character traits in courage and selflessness in the way that he puts himself in danger to steal their money back and give it back to the people. And this comes from Book 1 of the Republic. Next, Prince John came into rule just because his brother left and was unfair to the people and only took the money for his own benefit. And just by definition, Plato explains that a tyrant is a great injustice. And the idea of pleonexia comes into play here because the prince is constantly grasping for more and taking more money than needed. He is not helping the people in any way. He's just taking it for his own luxury and taking it for his own benefit. And Plato also explains how a society will be more successful with more balance and harmony. And in this way, Robin Hood is trying to reset the balance. He's taking the money from the prince and giving it back to the people. And in that way, he's trying to make the harmony and balance in the society so that it will work better and be more successful. And this comes from Book 1 of the Republic. The cave is also a part of the justice, and the prisoners in the darkness can kind of be paralleled to the commoners because they're in the dark about what life could be with the money. And the Robin Hood is showing them the light by bringing the money back to them and showing what life can be without the constant struggle of money and not knowing how they're going to survive. And that comes from Book 7 of the Republic. Lastly, the ship of state is like an analogy that Plato uses for justice, and he talks about how the rule by force, so Prince John is doing that, he came in by force, and then how he doesn't exactly know what the people need. He doesn't have the understanding of how the people live, so he is unaware of the stars and seasons to navigate, in Plato's words, and he is not a good leader in that way, and Robin Hood is that. He comes in and tries to bring the balance back and knows what the people need to be able to help them and lead them and give them the money that they need to survive. And this comes from Book 6 of the Republic, and that's why I think that Robin Hood is just.
So after we debated both sides, we came to the conclusion that Robin Hood is just based on Plato's views of justice in the Republic. And this comes down to that justice is not a set of rules as stated earlier. Every situation is a new look on how justice can be. So when you look at Robin's unjust acts, they outweigh the injustice of the king. So the unjust acts do not seem as unjustly as they would normally. And thank you. And these are our sources.
Are there any questions?
I'll ask a question. So King John, you were saying there near the end, Emily, is unaware of the stars and the seasons. Is that the analogy you were making?
Yeah.
And what that means is that he's unaware of normal, kind of regular person life. Is that the idea?
Yeah, he doesn't know what the commoners have to go through. He doesn't realize how much he's hurting them by taking their money, and doesn't think of the result of high taxes and everything like that.
So he's ignorant of something important that's going on, some sort of big picture or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I can accept that. I think another way to think about it would be that he's focused only on, in some ways, the same things so if we go, that the normal people are. So if we go back to the three parts of the city-state that Zach was talking about, I think it was you, that that the merchant classes are sort of grasping for more. Now, I would argue, and I think you would probably agree, that the reason they're doing that is because they don't have enough to sustain themselves. So there's something there important, but that basically what the king is doing wrong is lowering himself to the level of the merchant class by continuing to grasp for wealth and things like that, rather than whatever would cause wisdom to occur or something like that. So I guess where I'm going with that is that you could argue, and I understand your view, I'm just throwing this out, you could argue that the problem with the king is that he's too focused on sort of regular normal life. And so he continues to grasp for the things that normal people grasp for, when he should be thinking about other things, like how to govern wisely and things like that. So I don't know, does that seem like a reasonable interpretation too? Other thoughts or comments, questions? Okay, thank you.